At the wedding, my daughter said, "Mom, you'll sit in the last row on the edge, and my husband's mother will sit in the front." I smirked and agreed. She didn't know that I paid for the entire wedding. On the wedding day, I made. Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Before everything fell apart, I thought I had done everything right as a mother. My name is Margaret, though everyone calls me Maggie, and for 58 years, I had lived a simple, honest life in suburban Connecticut. I raised my daughter Jessica alone after my husband passed when she was only 7. I worked 2 jobs, morning shift at the hospital as a nurse, evenings doing bookkeeping for a local grocery store. Every penny I saved went into Jessica's college fund, her dance lessons, her summer camps. I wanted her to have everything I never had. Jessica grew up beautiful and ambitious. She graduated with honors, landed a good job in marketing, and at 28, she met Ryan. He seemed nice enough at first, polite, well-dressed, came from money. His mother, Patricia, was a different story. From the very first family dinner, I noticed how Patricia looked at me. Her eyes would sweep over my simple dress, my practical shoes, and something cold would flicker across her face. She spoke to me in that particular tone wealthy people use when they want you to know your place, but I ignored it. Jessica was happy, and that was all that mattered. When Ryan proposed, Jessica came to me with shining eyes. "Mom, we're getting married," she squealed, hugging me tight. I cried happy tears, thinking of the little girl who used to fall asleep in my arms. Then came the wedding planning. Jessica wanted everything perfect: the venue, the flowers, the dress. "Don't worry, Mom," she told me one evening as we looked at venue options. "I know it's expensive, but Ryan's family will help." I watched her face glow with excitement and made a decision. I went to the bank the next day and took out almost everything I had saved for my retirement. $68,000. It was nearly all I had, but Jessica was my only child, my entire world. I paid the deposits quietly. The beautiful lakeside venue, the florist, the photographer, the caterer who would serve filet mignon and lobster to 200 guests. I didn't tell Jessica it was my money. I wanted her to have her dream wedding without the burden of guilt. But something started to change in Jessica. The closer we got to the wedding, the more time she spent with Patricia. They went dress shopping together without inviting me. They planned the seating chart together. When I asked about the arrangements, Jessica's responses became shorter, colder. "Patricia knows more about these things, Mom," she said one day, not even looking up from her phone. "She's been to so many high society weddings. The first real stab came 3 weeks before the wedding." We were at the final venue walkthrough. Patricia swept through the space like she owned it, critiquing the tablecloth colors, rearranging the floor plan. I stood there quietly, watching the staff nod and scramble to please her. Then we got to the seating discussion. "Now for the family seating," Patricia announced, pulling out a diagram. "Ryan's immediate family will be at the front tables naturally. My sister, my brother, and their families here, here, and here." Her perfectly manicured finger tapped the paper. "And my mom?" Jessica asked. I waited. I had assumed I would sit at the main family table, next to my daughter on her wedding day. Patricia's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. She exchanged a glance with Jessica. "Well, dear, we've been thinking, given the size of Ryan's family, and how many important guests we have." Jessica took a breath. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Embarrassment. She was embarrassed of me. "Mom," Jessica said, her voice steady and cold, "you'll be sitting in the last row on the end. Patricia will sit up front at the family table." The room went silent. Even the wedding planner stopped writing. I felt Patricia's triumphant gaze on me, felt the weight of my daughter's betrayal settling into my bones. I could have screamed. I could have told them right then that I had paid for every single rose, every chair, every bite of food they would serve. But instead, I smiled. A small, quiet smile. "Of course, sweetheart," I said softly. "Whatever you think is best." Jessica looked relieved. Patricia looked satisfied. Neither of them knew what I was planning. Neither of them knew that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives, because I had paid for this wedding, every single penny. And on the wedding day, I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly who was in charge. I drove home that night with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The humiliation kept replaying in my mind. Jessica's cold voice, Patricia's smug expression, the wedding planner's pitying glance. I had raised Jessica alone, sacrificed everything, and this was how she repaid me. By relegating me to the back row like some distant acquaintance, while Patricia, who had contributed nothing, would bask in the spotlight. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out the folder I kept with all the wedding receipts. I spread them across the table, one by one. The venue contract, $22,000. My signature at the bottom. The caterer, $18,500, my credit card. The photographer, $4,800, my check. The flowers, $6,200, my account. The DJ, the cake, the linens, the lighting, the invitations, my money, my money, my money. I added it up on my calculator 3 times, hoping the number would change. $68,437. That was my entire retirement savings. Gone. I had planned to buy a small condo in Florida eventually, somewhere warm where my old nurse's knees wouldn't ache so badly in winter. Now that dream was ashes. The fear hit me then, cold and sharp. What had I done? I was 58 years old with maybe $15,000 left in my savings account. I would have to work until I was 70 now, maybe longer. My body was already tired. How many more double shifts could I handle? And for what? For a daughter who wanted to hide me in the back corner of a wedding I had paid for? I made myself a cup of tea with trembling hands and sat in the darkness of my kitchen. The rational part of my brain said to let it go, to accept this humiliation and move on. Jessica was young, influenced by Patricia's wealth and status. Maybe she would realize her mistake eventually. But another part of me, a part I didn't know existed, was rising up like a tidal wave. This wasn't just about seating arrangements. This was about respect, about dignity, about Jessica learning that actions have consequences. I couldn't let this stand. Around midnight, sitting in that dark kitchen, my first plan began to form. It was simple, really. I would call the vendors. I would cancel everything. Let Jessica and Patricia scramble to pull together a wedding in 3 weeks with no venue, no caterer, no flowers. Let them use Patricia's money for once. I even picked up my phone and started scrolling through my contacts to find the venue coordinator's number. My finger hovered over the call button, but I stopped. Canceling would hurt Jessica, yes, but it would also hurt me. People would call me vindictive, cruel. They would say I ruined my own daughter's wedding out of spite. And Jessica? Jessica would never forgive me. I would lose her forever. I set the phone down and stared at those receipts again. There had to be another way. a way to make my point without destroying everything. That's when I remembered something my own mother once told me. Maggie, she had said, the most powerful thing a woman can do is hold her cards close until the exact right moment. Let them underestimate you. Let them think they've won. Then show them what you're really made of. A new plan began to crystallize in my mind. I wouldn't cancel the wedding. I would let it proceed exactly as planned. Let Jessica have her perfect day. Let Patricia preen and pose at the front table. Let them think they had won. But I would take steps, careful, strategic steps, to ensure that the truth came out at the right moment. Not to destroy the wedding, but to make absolutely certain that everyone knew who had made it possible. I pulled out a notebook and started writing. First, I would need copies of all the contracts and receipts. Second, I would need to talk to the vendors, quietly establish certain understandings. Third, I would need insurance, a backup plan in case Jessica or Patricia tried to cut me out entirely. By 3 a.m, I had a framework. It wasn't complete yet, but it was a start. I gathered up all the receipts and put them back in the folder. Then I made myself a promise. I would not be pushed to the back row of my own daughter's wedding. A wedding I had paid for with my life savings, without making sure the truth was known. Jessica wanted Patricia at the head table? Fine. But she was going to learn a very expensive lesson about gratitude, respect, and the woman who had given her everything. I just had to be smart about it. Strategic. Patient. The wedding was in 3 weeks. I had time. And I had something they didn't. The receipts. The next morning, I called the venue coordinator, a pleasant woman named Sandra, whom I had worked with from the beginning. I kept my voice steady and professional. Sandra, this is Margaret Collins, Jessica's mother. I need to schedule a meeting to go over some final details. Of course, Mrs. Collins. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, I lied smoothly. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page before the big day. Would tomorrow work? And Sandra? I'd prefer if we kept this meeting between us for now. I want to surprise Jessica with some special touches. There was a pause. Well, I should mention that Patricia Hayes, that's the groom's mother, has also been in touch. She's requested quite a few changes to... I understand, I interrupted gently. But Sandra, can you pull up the contract for me? Who is listed as the financial guarantor? I heard keyboard clicking. That would be you, Mrs. Collins, Margaret Collins. Your signature, your credit card on file. Exactly. So any changes to the event need my approval first, correct? Another pause. Longer this time. Yes, ma'am. That's correct. Good. Then I'll see you tomorrow at 10. And Sandra? I'd appreciate your discretion. I could hear the understanding in her voice when she replied. Of course, Mrs. Collins. I'll see you tomorrow. After I hung up, I made similar calls to the caterer, the florist, and the photographer. To each one, I explained that I was the one paying, that my approval was needed for any changes, and that I would be visiting them personally to review final details. I was polite, friendly even, but I made my position crystal clear. The florist, a chatty woman named Rosa, let something slip. Oh, I'm so glad you called. That other woman, Patricia? She came in yesterday, trying to change your daughter's bouquet to something more sophisticated. Said the roses you picked were too common. I told her I needed to check with whoever placed the order first. My blood ran cold. Did she say anything else? She seemed surprised that she couldn't just make changes. Said something about how she assumed Ryan's family was paying for most of it anyway. Rosa laughed nervously. I didn't know what to say, so I told her I'd have to get back to her. You did exactly right, Rosa. Don't change anything without my direct approval. And if Patricia comes back, please let me know immediately. Will do, Mrs. Collins. I met with each vendor over the next 3 days. I brought my folder of receipts and contracts, and I made sure each person understood the situation without me having to say anything too explicit. I was the client. My money, my approval. I also made a strategic decision. I requested that each vendor prepare a detailed invoice to be presented on the wedding day, clearly showing who had paid for what. For tax purposes, I explained to Sandra at the venue, I want everything documented. She gave me a knowing look. I understand perfectly, Mrs. Collins. We'll have everything itemized and ready. Meanwhile, I could feel the atmosphere shifting. On the 4th day after my conversation with Sandra, I got a phone call from Jessica. Mom, the venue coordinator said you came by? Her voice was sharp, suspicious. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for your big day, sweetheart, I replied calmly. Just checking on some details. What details? Patricia and I have everything handled. I know you do. I just wanted to review a few things. There was a long silence. Mom, you're not going to do anything to embarrass me, are you? The question hung in the air like poison. My own daughter thought I would sabotage her wedding. The hurt cut deep, but I kept my voice steady. Jessica, I would never do anything to ruin your wedding day. I promise you that. It was the truth. I wasn't going to ruin anything. I was just going to make sure credit was given where credit was due. Okay, Jessica said, but she didn't sound convinced. It's just, Patricia said you might be upset about the seating arrangements. Did she now? I kept my tone neutral. What else did Patricia say? She said that sometimes mothers have trouble letting go, accepting that their daughters have a new family now. Jessica's voice took on that parroting quality I had noticed before, repeating Patricia's words. She said it's natural for you to feel a little jealous of Patricia, the woman who had contributed nothing but criticism and manipulation. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Jessica, I'm not jealous. I'm happy for you. I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner next week. After I hung up, I sat very still. They were watching me now, Jessica and Patricia both. They suspected something, even if they didn't know what. But I had already taken the most important step. I had secured my position with every vendor. Every contract, every agreement, every arrangement was locked in place with my name and my money behind it. The point of no return had passed. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. I pulled out my notebook and checked off the first phase of my plan. Now came the harder part, maintaining my composure while they circled, while they watched, while they waited for me to slip up. But I wouldn't slip. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to lose control now. The rehearsal dinner was in 1 week. The wedding in 2. I just had to hold steady. The rehearsal dinner was at an upscale Italian restaurant that Patricia had chosen. Of course she had chosen it. She seemed to choose everything these days. I arrived exactly on time, wearing a simple navy dress, my hair neatly styled. I had decided to be perfectly polite, perfectly agreeable, perfectly invisible. Jessica barely acknowledged me when I arrived. She was too busy laughing with Patricia, the two of them thick as thieves at the far end of the private dining room. Ryan's family filled most of the tables. Aunts, uncles, cousins I had never met. My side of the family consisted of me and my sister Carol, who had flown in from Ohio. Carol took one look around the room and whispered, "Maggie, what the hell is going on here? Where are we supposed to sit?" I squeezed her hand. "Just follow my lead. Trust me." We found our name cards at a table near the kitchen door. Not even at the main family table. Patricia had seated us with some of Ryan's distant co-workers, but I smiled and sat down and made pleasant conversation. I watched Patricia hold court, watched Jessica beam at her future mother-in-law like she had found a new, improved version of me. I watched Ryan's father give a toast that mentioned his own mother, but not me. Not once. Carol was seething beside me, but I remained calm. Because in my purse, I had something they didn't know about. Earlier that day, I had executed the next phase of my plan. I had visited my lawyer, a sharp woman named Diane, who had helped me with my will years ago. I explained the situation, not emotionally, just the facts. I showed her the contracts, the receipts, the proof that I had paid for every aspect of this wedding. What I need, I told Diane, is protection. What if they try to exclude me from the wedding entirely? What if they try to physically remove me? Diane had listened carefully, then drafted a legal letter. It was addressed to the venue, with copies to all the major vendors. It simply stated that Margaret Collins was the sole financial guarantor of the event, that the contracts were legally binding, and that she had every right to be present at the event she had funded. It was cold, clinical, and absolutely bulletproof. If anyone tries to remove you from that venue, Diane said, they'll be in breach of contract and potentially facing legal action. This letter ensures the venue staff knows they cannot bar you from entry. I had delivered copies that afternoon. Sandra's eyes had widened when she read it. Mrs. Collins, is there something I should know about? Just protecting my interests, Sandra. That's all. Now, sitting at this rehearsal dinner, watching my daughter laugh with another woman in the role that should have been mine, I felt the weight of that letter in my purse like a shield. The evening dragged on. Speeches, toasts, stories about Ryan's childhood. Nothing about Jessica's childhood, nothing about me. It was as if I had been erased. Then, as dessert was being served, Patricia stood up. If I could have everyone's attention, her voice rang out with authority. I just want to say how thrilled we are to be welcoming Jessica into our family. Ryan is so lucky to have found such a wonderful woman. She placed her hand on Jessica's shoulder possessively. And of course, we're so grateful to everyone who has helped make this wedding possible. It's going to be such a beautiful celebration. She paused, looking directly at me with a cold smile. Of course, weddings are expensive, and the Hayes family is more than happy to invest in our children's future. We believe in giving them the very best start possible. The implication was clear. She was taking credit. She wanted everyone in this room to think that she and her family had paid for this wedding. I felt Carol stiffen beside me. She started to stand, ready to say something, but I grabbed her wrist and pulled her back down. Not now, I whispered. Not yet. Maggie, she's lying. You paid for everything. I know, and soon everyone else will too. But tonight is not the night. Carol looked at me like I was crazy, but she sat back down. Patricia finished her speech to applause. Jessica hugged her, actually hugged her, while I sat invisible in the corner. But then something happened that I hadn't expected. Ryan's uncle, a loud man named Frank, who had clearly had too much wine, called out, "So, Patricia, how much is this shindig setting you back? Must be what, 60, 70 grand?" Patricia's smile faltered for just a second. Well, we don't like to discuss specific numbers, but yes, we've been very generous. We? Frank laughed. I thought you told me Ryan's dad said the venue alone was more than you wanted to spend. Said some, Frank. Ryan's father cut him off sharply. That's enough. An awkward silence fell. Patricia's face had gone slightly pink. Jessica looked confused. I caught Patricia's eye across the room. She was staring at me, and in that moment, I knew. She knew that I knew she was lying, and she knew that I hadn't called her out on it. Yet, the suspicion in her eyes was delicious. What was I planning? Why hadn't I corrected her? What did I know? I smiled at her, the same quiet smile I had given Jessica at the seating chart discussion. Then I looked away and took a sip of my wine. Let her wonder. Let her worry. After the dinner ended, Jessica pulled me aside near the coat check. "Mom, I noticed you were very quiet tonight." "Was I? I was just enjoying watching you be happy." She studied my face. "You're being weird. Patricia said you might try to cause problems." "Problems?" I kept my voice innocent. "What kind of problems?" "I don't know. She said we need to make sure you don't do anything to disrupt the wedding." There it was. They were actively strategizing against me now. "Jessica, I've told you already. I would never ruin your wedding. I promise you that on everything I hold dear." She searched my eyes, looking for the lie she expected to find. But I meant every word. I wasn't going to ruin the wedding. I was going to make it exactly what it should be. A public acknowledgement of the truth. "Okay," she said finally. "I'm sorry. I'm just stressed." "I understand, sweetheart. Go home and get some rest. Big day coming up." I hugged her, and for a moment she hugged me back. My little girl. What had happened to us? When I got home that night, I was exhausted. The emotional toll of sitting through that dinner, smiling while being erased, had drained me completely. Carol stayed at my house, and we sat up talking until midnight. "They're going to be blindsided," Carol said with grim satisfaction. "When the truth comes out, they're going to look like fools." "I know." "Are you sure you want to do this? Jessica might never forgive you." I had thought about that, turned it over in my mind 1,000 times. If I don't stand up for myself now, what message does that send? That she can treat me like garbage and I'll just take it? No. She needs to learn this lesson, even if it's painful. I gave myself 3 days to rest after the rehearsal dinner, 3 days to sleep, to walk in the park, to prepare myself mentally for what was coming. I needed to be strong, centered, clear-headed. The wedding was in 4 days, and I was ready. 2 days before the wedding, Patricia showed up at my door unannounced. I was in my garden, trimming roses, when I heard the click of expensive heels on my front walkway. I looked up to see her standing there in a cream-colored pantsuit, her hair perfectly styled, her expression carefully arranged into something that might pass for friendliness. "Margaret," she said warmly, "I hope I'm not disturbing you." I set down my pruning shears slowly. "Patricia, this is unexpected." I know, I should have called." She glanced at my small, modest house, and I saw the judgment in her eyes even as she smiled. "But I was in the neighborhood, and I thought we should talk, mother to mother." I didn't invite her in. I just waited, my hands dirty from the soil, my old gardening shirt stained with grass. Let her see me like this. Let her underestimate me. "I wanted to clear the air before the wedding," Patricia continued. "I sense some tension between us, and I think it's important that we're on the same page." "Are we not on the same page?" She laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. "Well, I worry that you might feel a bit left out. I know Jessica and I have gotten very close during the wedding planning, and sometimes that can be hard for the biological mother to accept." The biological mother. As if I were some incubator, some minor character in Jessica's life story. I didn't take the bait. "Jessica is lucky to have another woman who cares about her." Patricia's smile widened. "Exactly. I'm so glad you see it that way. Because the truth is, Margaret, Ryan and Jessica are going to need support as they start their life together." financial support, social connections, opportunities. The Hayes family can provide all of that. I'm sure they can. The thing is, Patricia took a step closer, her voice dropping into something more confidential. I'd hate for any awkwardness or hurt feelings to damage Jessica's relationship with Ryan's family. You understand what I'm saying, don't you? There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. Behave yourself, or we'll cut Jessica off from all those wonderful Hayes family resources. I understand perfectly, I said calmly. Good. Because I've been thinking about the seating arrangement. I know you agreed to sit in the back, but I wonder if that might make you feel resentful. What if we moved you up a bit? Maybe row 5 or 6. Still not family seating, of course, but closer. She was offering me a crumb, a tiny concession to make me feel grateful and compliant. This was the temptation. Accept a slightly better seat, stay quiet, let her take credit, and avoid conflict. I looked at her for a long moment. She had no idea at all. That's very kind of you, Patricia, but I'm fine where Jessica placed me. I don't need to be anywhere else. She blinked, surprised. Are you sure? I don't want you to feel... I'm sure. She studied me, trying to read my expression. You're being very gracious about all this. Not all mothers would be so understanding. I raised Jessica to think for herself and make her own decisions. I have to respect those decisions, don't I? Patricia relaxed visibly. She thought she had won. She thought my compliance meant defeat. That's a very mature attitude, Margaret. I'm glad we had this chat. So am I. After she left, I stood in my garden for a long time, my hands trembling slightly. But it wasn't fear or anger making them shake. It was the effort of holding back, of not revealing what I knew, of maintaining this facade of the meek, defeated mother. Carol called me that evening. How are you holding up? Patricia came to see me today. What? What did she want? I told her about the conversation, about the offered seat upgrade, about the thinly veiled threats. Carol was furious, but I felt strangely calm. She thinks she's won, I said. She thinks I'm just going to fade into the background. Let me tell you something about Patricia Hayes, Carol said grimly. I did some digging, called a friend who knows their family. Maggie, they're not as wealthy as they pretend to be. Ryan's dad lost a lot of money in bad investments 5 years ago. They live well on credit and appearances. Patricia probably couldn't have afforded this wedding even if she wanted to pay for it. The revelation settled over me like a cold blanket. It all made sense now. Why Patricia was so eager to take credit. Why she had been so quick to exclude me. She needed everyone to think the Hayes family had paid for this lavish wedding because it maintained the illusion of their wealth. But it was my money, my retirement, my sacrifice. And she was trying to steal even the acknowledgement of it. The next day, I received an unexpected visit from Sandra, the venue coordinator. She looked nervous. Mrs. Collins, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I have your home address on file from the contract. Is everything all right? Yes, everything's fine with the arrangements. But I wanted to tell you something off the record. She glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers. Patricia called me this morning. She asked me to make sure you were seated in the back row, and she also asked me to remove any mention of your name from the welcome boards or programs. My blood went cold. Remove my name? She said it would be cleaner if the welcome sign just said, "The Hayes family welcomes you," instead of mentioning both families. I told her I couldn't make those changes without your approval, since you're the primary client, and she got very upset. She threatened to leave a bad review, said we were being unprofessional. I took a deep breath. What did you tell her? I told her that our contract is with you, and we follow our client's wishes. She hung up on me. Sandra looked at me with sympathy. Mrs. Collins, I've worked in this industry for 15 years. I've seen a lot of family dynamics, a lot of weddings, and I just want you to know I'm on your side. Whatever you need on Saturday, you just let me know." I felt tears prick my eyes. This woman, this virtual stranger, was showing me more loyalty than my own daughter. "Thank you, Sandra. That means more than you know." After Sandra left, I called my sister back. "Carol, I need you to do something for me." "Anything?" "I need you to be my witness on Saturday. I need you to stay close to me, to watch everything that happens, to back me up if things go sideways." "Maggie, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to make sure that the truth comes out, publicly, undeniably, but I need someone in my corner." "You've got me, always." That night, I also called two of my oldest friends from the hospital, Linda and Sharon. I didn't tell them everything, but I invited them to the wedding and asked if they would sit with me. "In the back row?" Linda asked. "Honey, why are you sitting in the back row at your own daughter's wedding?" "Long story, but I need friendly faces nearby. Can you come?" "Of course we'll come. We've got your back." By the time I went to bed that night, I felt fortified. Patricia thought she had isolated me, made me weak and compliant. But I had my own army: Carol, Sandra, Linda, Sharon, and most importantly, I had the truth documented in black and white. The wedding was tomorrow. I laid out my dress, a beautiful emerald green that I had bought for myself, not the beige mother of the bride dress Jessica had suggested I wear. "So you don't stand out too much, Mom." I polished my shoes. I prepared my folder of receipts and contracts, placing them carefully in a large purse. And I slept soundly for the first time in weeks, because I knew exactly what I was going to do. We walked up to the entrance where Patricia stood with two large men in suits, private security she had hired. She saw me, and her face went hard. "I told Jessica you might try to crash. You're not welcome here, Margaret. Please leave before we have to escort you out." I pulled out my phone and showed her the legal letter from my attorney. "This venue is under contract to me. I am the paying client. If you try to remove me, you'll be in violation of that contract." Sandra appeared from inside, looking anxious but resolute. "Mrs. Hayes, I've explained this already. Mrs. Collins has every legal right to be here. She is our client." Patricia's face turned an ugly shade of red. "This is absurd. Jessica doesn't want her here." "Then Jessica should have thought of that before she let her mother pay for the entire wedding," Carol said sharply. I walked past Patricia. The security guards looked at each other, uncertain, but they didn't stop me. Inside, I walked calmly to the back row, to my assigned seat on the end. Linda, Sharon, and Carol sat beside me. The ceremony began. Jessica saw me as she walked past. Our eyes met. She looked shocked, then angry, then confused. But she kept walking. The vows were exchanged. They were pronounced husband and wife. Then came the reception. As guests sat down, I saw Patricia notice the place cards that read, "The Collins and Hayes families thank you for celebrating with us." Her face went white. After the first dance and toasts, the DJ announced, "And now, the venue coordinator has a few thank you acknowledgments to share." Sandra took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. I'd particularly like to thank the person who made all of this possible, Margaret Collins, mother of the bride, who handled all the arrangements and payments with such grace and attention to detail. Margaret, could you stand up so everyone can give you a round of applause?" The room went silent. Then confused applause started. I stood slowly, my heart racing, but my face calm. Jessica stood up at the head table. "Wait, what? Sandra, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your mother, dear. She paid for everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers. Didn't you know?" "That's not true!" Patricia stood up, her voice shrill. "The Hayes family paid for this wedding." Sandra's face hardened. Ma'am, I have the contracts and receipts. Every invoice is in Margaret Collins's name. Would you like me to show you the documentation? The room erupted in whispers. Jessica looked like she might faint. Show them, I said clearly. Show everyone the receipts. Sandra's assistant began distributing copies of the itemized invoice. As people read them, the whispers grew louder. $68,000, someone read aloud, all from Margaret Collins. Jessica pushed through the crowd to me, her face streaked with tears. Mom? Is this true? Yes, every word. But you said Patricia was helping. No, sweetheart. You assumed that. I paid for everything because I'm your mother. But then you relegated me to the back row and put Patricia at the family table. Then you uninvited me from my own daughter's wedding. A wedding I paid for with my entire retirement savings. The gasps around us were audible. Jessica covered her mouth with her hands. Patricia pushed forward. This is a manipulation. She's trying to ruin your wedding. Ruin it? I turned to Patricia. I paid for it. I made it happen. The only thing I'm ruining is your lie. Patricia's face contorted. You bitter, jealous woman. This isn't about jealousy, Patricia. This is about respect and honesty. You've been taking credit for something you didn't do and poisoning my daughter against me. Jessica was sobbing now. Ryan came to her side, looking shell-shocked. Is it true, Patricia? He asked his mother quietly. Did you lie about paying for the wedding? Patricia sputtered. We contributed. We paid for your tux rental and the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner that cost $2,000, I said quietly, while this wedding cost $68,000. Jessica looked at Patricia with dawning horror. You told me your family was paying for most of it. You made me feel sorry for my mom, made me think she was jealous of your money. I was trying to help you, Patricia insisted. You needed credit, Carol interjected. You needed everyone to think your family was wealthy and generous. But you're a fraud. Everything was unraveling for Patricia. Her lies, her manipulation, her carefully constructed image, all of it crumbling in front of 200 witnesses. And I stood there, calm and vindicated, while my daughter finally saw the truth. The silence in the reception hall was deafening. All eyes were on Patricia, who stood there with her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, unable to form words. The sophisticated, controlling woman who had orchestrated my exclusion was reduced to a sputtering mess. Ryan stepped away from his mother. Mom, is what Margaret is saying true? Did you pretend our family paid for this wedding? Ryan, you don't understand. Patricia grasped at his arm, but he pulled away. Did you or did you not tell Jessica we were paying for most of the wedding? Patricia's silence was answer enough. Jessica turned to me, her face devastated. Mom, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I was so horrible to you. Yes, you were, I said quietly. There was no point in sugarcoating it. You were cruel and ungrateful. You let this woman convince you that I was the problem, when all I've ever done is love you and sacrifice for you. I know, I'm so sorry. She was sobbing, mascara running down her face. How can you ever forgive me? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was 28 years old, but in that moment, she looked like the little girl who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares. I forgive you, I said. But Jessica, you need to understand something. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You hurt me deeply. You chose appearances and status over your own mother. That's something you're going to have to live with. Ryan's father had made his way over. He looked at Patricia with disgust. You told me Margaret couldn't contribute much. You said we needed to help with expenses. I gave you $10,000 for the venue deposit. Where did that money go, Patricia? Patricia's face went even paler. It went to the wedding. Which $10,000 expense? I asked pointedly. Because every vendor was paid by me. The realization hit Ryan's father. You kept it. You pocketed my money. Our money, he corrected himself. You stole from our family finances to maintain your lie. The crowd was watching this family drama unfold like a soap opera. Some people looked uncomfortable, others fascinated. Jessica's maid of honor had her phone out, probably recording. Sandra stepped forward again. If I may, I have all the documentation here. Every contract, every invoice, every payment receipt. All in Margaret Collins's name. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, the DJ, the cake, the decorations, the lighting. Everything. She handed a thick folder to Ryan. He opened it, flipping through page after page, his face getting darker with each one. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Mom, what did you do? I was trying to help, Patricia insisted, her voice becoming shrill. Jessica deserved a proper wedding, and Margaret couldn't provide one. I had to step in. You didn't step in, I said coldly. You stepped on. You used my money to buy my daughter's affection. You erased me from her wedding. You made me sit in the back row like a stranger while you basked in credit you didn't earn. I gave Jessica guidance. I gave her access to our social circles. You gave her lies, Carol interjected, and you tried to steal what wasn't yours. One of Ryan's aunts spoke up from the crowd. Patricia, I specifically remember you telling me at the rehearsal dinner that this wedding was costing the Hayes family a fortune. You let us all believe you were being so generous. Another voice. She told me the same thing! The murmurs grew louder. People were angry now. Angry at Patricia for the deception. Angry that they'd been manipulated. Jessica turned to Patricia, her voice ice cold. Get out. What? Get out of my wedding now. Patricia looked shocked. Jessica, you can't be serious. I'm Ryan's mother. And she's my mother. Jessica pointed at me. The mother who actually sacrificed for me. The mother I treated like garbage because of your lies. Get out. Ryan nodded. Mom, you need to leave. Dad, can you take her? Ryan's father looked tired, disappointed, but he nodded. Come on, Patricia. We're going. No, this is ridiculous. I won't be humiliated like this. Patricia's voice was panicked now. The two security guards she had hired stepped forward. Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave the premises. The irony was not lost on anyone. The security Patricia had hired to keep me out was now escorting her out. As they led her toward the exit, Patricia looked back at me with pure hatred. You did this, you vindictive bitch. You planned this whole thing. No, I said calmly. You did this. I just told the truth. After Patricia was gone, the reception hall was buzzing with conversation. Sandra quickly worked with the DJ to get things back on track. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the bride and groom a moment, shall we? The bar is open. People reluctantly returned to their seats, though the excited chatter continued. This wedding would be talked about for years. Jessica came to me, taking my hands. Mom, I don't even know where to start. I was so awful to you. I believed everything Patricia said. I actually uninvited you from my own wedding. I know. How can you even stand to look at me? I cupped her face in my hands. Because you're my daughter. Because I know what it's like to be manipulated by someone who seems to have all the answers. Patricia is very good at what she does. That doesn't excuse what I did to you. No, it doesn't. But it helps explain it. I paused. Jessica, you're going to have to earn back my trust. This isn't something that gets fixed with an apology. I know. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. Start by moving me to the family table, I said, with a small smile. She laughed through her tears. Done. Within minutes, place cards were being switched. I was moved to the head table next to Jessica. Patricia's empty seat was removed entirely. My sister Carol was also moved up, as were Linda and Sharon. As I sat down at that head table, looking out at the beautiful reception I had created, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. The rest of the evening was actually beautiful. Jessica gave a tearful speech thanking me, admitting her mistakes publicly, and acknowledging that none of this would have been possible without me. People applauded. Some cried. Ryan pulled me aside later. "Margaret, I owe you an apology too. I should have seen what my mother was doing. I should have stood up for you." "You're young," I said. "You're learning. Just take care of my daughter. And don't let anyone come between you two, not even family." "Never," he promised. As the night wound down, guests came to me one by one to congratulate me, to apologize for misjudging the situation, to praise my grace under pressure. It was vindicating, yes, but also exhausting. When I finally got home that night, I collapsed on my couch. Carol sat beside me. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." "I did," I agreed. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Tired, sad, relieved, vindicated, all of it at once. "Patricia's life is over," Carol said with satisfaction. "Everyone knows what she did. Her reputation is destroyed." I nodded. Patricia would face consequences, social ostracism, probably a divorce from what I'd heard about Ryan's father's reaction, and the loss of any relationship with Ryan and Jessica. Her defeat was total and complete, and I had won without ever raising my voice, without making a scene, without doing anything except telling the truth. Justice, it turned out, didn't require drama. It just required receipts. 3 months after the wedding, I sat in my newly renovated sunroom, sipping coffee and watching the spring flowers bloom in my garden. Life had changed in ways I never could have anticipated. The week after the wedding, Jessica had shown up at my door with Ryan. They both looked serious. "Mom, we need to talk about the money," Jessica said. I had been expecting this. "Okay." Ryan and I discussed it. "We're going to pay you back, every penny." I started to protest, but Ryan held up his hand. "No, Margaret, this isn't negotiable. You shouldn't have spent your entire retirement on our wedding. It might take us a few years," Jessica added, "but we've already worked out a payment plan. We're going to give you $2,000 a month until the full amount is repaid, plus interest." Over the next 3 months, Jessica and Ryan had been true to their word. The first payment arrived on schedule, along with a handwritten note from Jessica. The second came with photos from their honeymoon. The third came with an invitation to Sunday dinner. Our relationship was healing, slowly, carefully, but genuinely. Jessica called me twice a week now. We had lunch every Sunday. She asked for my advice, listened to my stories, actually seemed interested in my life. "I was so stupid," she told me one afternoon as we walked through the park. "I let Patricia make me ashamed of where I came from, of you, of our simple life. She made me think that money and status were the most important things." "She preys on insecurity," I said. "That's what people like her do." "Have you heard what happened to her?" I had, actually. Carol kept me updated. Patricia's life had indeed fallen apart spectacularly. Ryan's father had filed for divorce within 2 weeks of the wedding. The revelation about the stolen $10,000, combined with the public humiliation, had been the final straw. The divorce was ugly and public. Patricia had been cut out of Ryan's life entirely. He refused to see her or speak to her. When she tried to visit their apartment, Jessica called the police. The restraining order was issued quickly, but the social consequences were perhaps the most devastating. The video of the wedding confrontation had gone viral on social media. Patricia Hayes became a cautionary tale, a meme. Her country club revoked her membership. Her friends stopped returning calls. The charity boards she sat on asked her to resign. I heard Patricia had moved to a small apartment in a different city. Working a retail job after the divorce settlement left her with far less than expected. Her entire identity had been built on status, wealth, and control. Now she had none of those things. I mostly felt pity. She had destroyed her own life through lies and manipulation. She had lost her son, her social standing, her marriage, and for what? Meanwhile, my own life had blossomed. The wedding story had spread through my hospital, and I found myself something of a local legend. More importantly, my relationship with Jessica had transformed into something deeper and more honest. She no longer took me for granted. Ryan turned out to be a good man once freed from his mother's influence. He treated Jessica well, and he went out of his way to include me in their lives. He called me Mom, invited me to dinners, asked for my advice. My sister Carol visited more often now. My friends Linda and Sharon had become even closer after standing by me. I had a community, a support system, genuine relationships built on honesty and respect. I had also started planning for my retirement again. With Jessica and Ryan's payments, I would recover the money I'd spent. It would take time, but I was patient. One Saturday afternoon, Jessica came over to help me plant tomatoes. As we worked side by side in the dirt, she said quietly, "Mom, you taught me the most important lesson of my life at that wedding." "What's that?" "That true strength isn't about money or status or control. It's about knowing your worth and standing up for yourself with dignity and truth." She paused. "I want to be like you when I grow up." I laughed, tears pricking my eyes. "You're already grown up, sweetheart." "You know what I mean. I want to have your integrity, your strength." I hugged her, getting dirt all over both of us. "You're my daughter. You'll always deserve my forgiveness, but never my blind acceptance of bad behavior. There's a difference." She nodded. "I understand that now." That evening, as I watered my new tomato plants, I thought about the journey from that terrible moment when Jessica had relegated me to the back row to this peaceful spring afternoon. It had been painful, frightening, and difficult. But it had also been necessary. I had found my voice. I had stood up for myself. I had refused to be erased or diminished. And in doing so, I had taught my daughter a lesson that would serve her for the rest of her life. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Thank you for today, Mom. I love you." I smiled and texted back, "I love you too, sweetheart." As the sun set over my garden, I felt genuinely happy. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, built on truth, strengthened by adversity, and filled with real relationships. And Patricia? Patricia was somewhere learning the hard way that the foundation you build your life on matters. Build it on lies, and eventually, it all comes crashing down. I had won, not just at the wedding, but in life. And that victory was sweeter than any revenge could ever be.